Hello Infiniteers! Today I'm going to show you how to hook up the logic for the Sky Islands puzzle in my Tron toy box. As you may recall from the playthrough video in episode 1, the goal of this puzzle is to rotate this part of the rail slide so that we can get down to the MCP complex. And to do that, you have to push a button up here on the central Sky Island, but this button is going to be protected by a force field and a combination lock. So let's start by reviewing the creativitoys that we're going to need, and to save time I have already placed these in my toy box. So let's look at those, and we're going to need one more that I have not put down yet, and that is this path creator. So let me put that one down first, and then we'll look at the other ones. So we're going to place this right underneath the button casing here. And this is going to come down right to the underside of that block. All right, so about 1 terrain cube high. I'll add my point there, and I'll exit. And before I forget, let's go ahead and set the properties here. Main thing is we want to take auto start objects when connected and turn that off. Okay, that's going to be the path for our force field, and for that we're going to use this full dome out of the basic blocks. The other toys we need are the button casing. This is out of Creativitoys. We're going to need 3 color pressure plates, and these are out of the gameplay toys. These are the same ones we used down in the canyons in an earlier episode. So I've got 3 of those on this central island. And when you put these down, make sure they're all oriented the same way. And then you're going to place another 3 of those, all oriented the same way. Don't rotate them. But you're going to place another set of them over here. This is going to be the set that shows you what those over there should be set to. So this shows you the combination for our combination lock, and the ones over there are going to be used to apply that combination. And while we're right over here, we also have some locators set up, and I've positioned these so that when the player's coming in on the rail slide, they won't see the enemy generation. So these locators are kind of hidden from that rail slide, and you can't see the rail slide. And then I have an enemy wave generator here hooked up to those 4 locators, and I have configured this ahead of time to save time with 4 elite Sicarans. Okay, and while we're right here, let's go ahead and take the generation delay to 0. And we connected the locators again with the new locator connection. All right, and then we have a trigger area that I dropped down on the rail slide here. And this is positioned about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the 7th piece of rail slide heading toward that island. And we're going to use that to generate the enemies so that by the time the player gets down there, those enemies should be in place. We also have a logic gate, a repeater, and 3 more logic gates, 1 for each of those color pressure plates. We have a regular pressure plate. This is out of Gameplay Toys, and I have one here. And I also have one that I've placed over here on the Sky Island. Okay. All right. Now, the combination lock that's going to be used to open this button casing. In order to implement this, the easiest way to do it is with the button casing. All right, and I really like this toy. But if you are on PC, or you're on a console and you don't have the Marvel Battlegrounds playset, you're not going to have the button casing. So what you can do instead is use a regular button and a logic gate. Okay? So what we want to do is when the button is pushed, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is pressed, we're going to come down here to our rail slide and rotate it. Okay? That's the goal of our puzzle. But again, if you don't have this, then it's going to work a little bit differently, because you can close the button casing and we want to use the combination to open that. But if you don't have this and what you have is this, what we're going to do instead using this is you would do a new logic connection when pressed, route it through this logic gate, and on output from the logic gate, then you would come down here and rotate the rail slide. Okay? And the combination would come into play to open the logic gate. All right? So the level starter would close this by default. So you'd make a connection from the level starter down there to this gate to close it. And then when the combination lock is input, instead of opening a button casing, which you don't have, you would open up the logic gate. Okay? And that way, if the player tries to push the button without entering the correct combination, the button won't do anything because the logic gate would be closed. They would have to enter the combination in order to open this gate, and then they could push the button to rotate the rail slide. So that's how you would do it if you don't have the button casing. But for us, I'm going to show you how to do it with this, because this is the ideal way to do it. Okay, so let's do a little bit of setup first. We need the level starter to initialize some things for us. So we're going to come down to our level starter. We're going to do a new logic connection on catalyze. All right. First thing I want to do is come up to this sky island up here, and we want to initialize these 3 color pressure plates in order to show what the combination should be. And the combination that I'm going to use is going to be green, purple, and blue. Okay? And by the way, before I get too far into this, let me remind you that I've got logic diagrams on my blog that may help you out. And I'll put a link to those in the video description as usual. So if you're following along with me and building this on your own system, you may want to reference those diagrams and follow along on there. All right, so I've already got the level starter going. Let's connect that up to this first one. And we're going to set this to green. And then back to the level starter. Takes a little while to make some of these connections. All right, so new logic connection on catalyze. Come up to our second color pressure plate over here. And we're going to set this one to purple. You can set these to any colors you want. You don't have to use my combination. Just make sure whatever combination you do use is what you set for the ones over at the button that they need to push. All right, so for the third one, I'm going to use blue. Okay, so there we are. And we've already hooked this up and configured this, so while we're right here, let's go ahead and hook the trigger area up, and then we'll be finished with that sky island. So on here, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll come over to our enemy wave generator and generate the wave. And we only want to do this once, so on the enemy wave generator, a new logic connection when the wave is generated. Come back to the trigger area and deactivate it. So that way, when they return from that island and pass through this trigger area, they won't spawn more enemies over there, which they're never going to see because they're not going back to that sky island. All right, so that island over there is done. Okay, let's take care of a few more simple things here. So we're going to use this pressure plate to rotate this switch. So on this plate, we'll do a new logic connection. When this is activated, come down here and rotate that. Okay, so that will allow the player to be able to rotate that switch so they can get to the different islands. Now for our force field, we're going to use this block. And so let's style this. Oops, I want to use the styling menu. And we're going to set the style on this to be the hologram. And I like that because it's see-through. You want to let the player know that there's something under this. So now we'll go into the logic menu for our block, do a new path connection. And connect it to the path. Okay. And on the block properties, toy box path, we're going to set the properties on this. I think all of these stay the same. We just need to change the movement style to one way and stop. Okay. Now to lower that force field, they're going to use the pressure plate over on this island. So on this pressure plate, if I can select it, there we go. We're going to do a new logic connection. When this is activated, we'll come over to our path and we'll do a reset and play. And that will lower the dome into the ground, making the button accessible. All right, so we're done with that far sky island. Now a few more level starter connections. Come over here to our level starter, do a new logic connection, excuse me, on catalyze. We want to close that button casing. And again, if you don't have the button casing, you're going to close this logic gate instead. We're going to deactivate that. Okay. All right. Now, the way the combination puzzle is going to work, I built one of these in my Toy Box Tutorials series. I can't remember the episode, but I had 5 color pressure plates, and here we only have 3. And the way this is going to work is as the player steps on these, they have to set all 3 to the correct combination in order to open the button casing, or if you don't have the button casing, to open that logic gate. And so we're going to use these 3 logic gates to correspond with that. So when they set this to the right color, that's going to open the gate. If it's set to the wrong color, it's going to close the gate. All right? And so you have to set all of these to the right color in order to get all 3 gates open. And we're going to use the repeater here to send a signal, or try to send a signal through all 3 gates. And so all 3 gates are going to have to be open in order for the repeater to be able to open the button casing. Okay? So that's how the combination lock is going to work. So to do that, we need our level starter to close all 3 of those logic gates by default. So we're going to come down here. a new logic connection on Catalyze. We want to start the toy box with all three of these logic gates in the closed state. And a new logic connection on Catalyze. I suppose it might have been faster to bring that level starter up here. My phone buzzed. Sorry about getting off course there. I was glancing at my phone. Okay, on Catalyze, close the other gate. And that should be it for the level starter for this episode. Close. Okay. And we'll do one more thing, just so I don't have to exit out of the toy box and save and reload. Oh, I already got a button hooked up to that. Cool. Alright, so we will simulate doing that by pushing our button, which invokes the level starter. And now when we come up here, that button casing should be closed. And it is. And also, our pressure plates over here should be set to their colors, and they are. And you'll notice they have a pattern on them as well, which is why you want the orientation of each of these to be identical with what's over on the central island, so that the patterns will be the same over there. Because the player may snap a picture of these or try to jot them down to remember, and you want to make it as easy as possible for the pressure plates on the central island to match these. Okay, so those are set. And that means these three logic gates here should also be in the closed state. Okay. Alright, so on our repeater, let's do that first. We'll set the properties here. And I'm going to change the rate of the repeater to 1 second. Okay. And this by default is off, which is fine, because we don't need this until the player actually gets up here to the Sky Island and starts working on the puzzle. So the first time they step on any of these pressure plates, we want to turn on that repeater. So we'll do a new logic connection. When this is stepped on, we're actually going to input into our logic gate here. And whenever this is stepped on, we'll attempt to input. And a new logic connection, when this is stepped on, we'll attempt to input into the gate. Okay? And then on output from the gate, we'll turn on the repeater. And when this is turned on, then we'll turn around and close this gate. Okay? Because we only need to turn this on one time. So the first time they step on any of these, we'll turn on the repeater. And on the repeater, we'll do a new logic connection on repeat. So every second, it's going to try to input a signal into this gate. And on output from that gate, it'll try to input into this gate. On output from this gate, it'll try to input to this gate. And on output from that gate, we'll come over to our button casing and activate it. Okay? Now by default, again, we just hooked up the level starter, so all three of these gates are closed. So the first time you step on one of these plates, it's going to turn on the repeater. The repeater is going to try to input through these gates, and it has to get through all three gates in order to get to the button casing. But the gates are closed, and the only way to open them is to set the right color on each of these. Okay, so on our first gate, our first color pressure plate, we're going to do a new logic connection, and the only color that's going to open that gate is green. So every other color is going to close this gate. And a new logic connection, if it's turned orange, close the gate. And a new logic connection. If it's turned green, though, this one's going to open the gate. If it's turned purple, we want to close it. If it's turned red, we want to close it. And what's the last one down there? If it's turned off. Okay. Let's see, how do we want to set the properties on this? For each of these, we're going to use the maximum number of colors. We're going to use all 5. We want this off. The affected type is all, and we're going to leave both of those off. So the sequence will not include the offsetting. All right, so once you set this to a color, it'll never be set to the offsetting again, which means we do not need to hook up this one. Okay, so just 5 per plate. All right, so we're basically using the default properties on all of these. Okay, so if they step on this the first time, it's going to go in sequence. So it's going to turn it to blue the first time they jump on this. It's going to make sure that gate stays closed because I made it close the gate. The gate's already closed, but that's okay. They step on it again, it turns it orange. They step on it again, it turns it green, which opens the gate. If they step on it again and they turn this purple, that's why I have each of those other colors closing that gate. This has to be set to green in order for this gate to be open. Okay? If they jump on this or change it to any other color, that's going to close the gate. So every one of these has to be set to the right color in order to open their corresponding gate. And once all 3 of those are opened, then the signal from the repeater can get through them all and get over here to open the button casing, or open this logic gate if you don't have the button casing. All right, so on this middle one then, we're going to basically do the same thing, but it's a different color that opens the gate. So this one, when it's turned blue, again, we'll close the gate. New logic connection, when it's turned orange, we'll close the gate. New logic connection, when it's turned green, that will close this gate. New logic connection, when it's turned purple, this time it will open the gate because that's the color I chose for this. And a new logic connection, when it's turned red, we'll close the gate. The color on the last one was blue. So when this is turned blue, we'll open the gate. All the other colors, though, need to close it. So hopefully this combination lock puzzle makes sense to you. I think I just did orange, didn't I? Yeah. All right, so we'll cancel Takes a little bit of time to hook up, but it's not too difficult, hopefully, to understand. And if you need a little bit of help understanding it, go look for the tutorial video in my Toy Box tutorial series for the color pressure plate puzzle, because that will tell you how that works, because I built one there as well. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do is, if it does make it through this logic gate, okay, that means we're getting to our button casing. So on output from here, and it's able to get through all three of those, we can turn around and come back to the repeater and turn it off, because we're done. We don't need to keep reopening that button casing. All right, on the button casing, we'll go into the properties for this, and we're going to set the cooldown time to the maximum of 15. So once they press the button here on the button casing, that's going to close this door again. They don't need to press it again, okay? So we'll leave this closed, and I want to leave it closed for the maximum amount of time, so that if they stand here a moment to see if that opens, it's not going to open. I want them to continue onward and start heading down toward the MCP. Okay, I think that is everything. Let's see, we took care of that island over there. We took care of everything on that island over there. We have the logic to lower the force field. We've got the logic in place for each of the color pressure plates. And we've set all their properties. And we've got all of the logic for these logic gates done. Yeah, so I believe that's everything. So the logic for the Sky Islands is done. Next time, we will be over in the MCP core, and I will show you how to build the rotating shields on the MCP. Thank you for watching. Before you go, leave a comment and let me know what you think of my Sky Islands puzzle. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Toy Box builds like this. That's all for me today. Take care.